Welcome once again, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to Mysteries from Beyond the Other Dominion. I'm your host, Dr. Franklin Rule, and today we're going to report on the ETs of Santa Monica Bay, tell you all about guillotining, investigate the paranormal aspects of the Titanic's sinking, tell you about the Viking ghost dog known as Black Shook, and show you film footage from Area 51, a top-secret UFO base. But first, the ETs of Santa Monica Bay. Back in 1986, two researchers from the renowned Scripps Institute discovered in the Santa Monica Bay an unusual clam. It's a little orange clam the size of $50. Technically, it's called the Solemni vede. Amazingly, it was found in a sewage outfall in the Santa Monica Bay area. The scientists discovered two amazing facts about this little clam. First, that it was feasting on poisonous sulfide, and secondly, that it converts that sulfide, which is an inorganic compound, into vital energy to sustain itself. Now, this actually represents evidence for the widespread existence of extraterrestrial life. Orthodox scientists have ruled out one planet after another as a possible habitat for ETs because they claim these planets lack organic materials and that they contain poisonous compounds. Now, I'm not saying we're going to find this little orange clam on a planet like Venus, which is loaded with sulfur, but on other planets yet to be discovered, we should expect to find some form of life able to convert both toxic substances and inorganic compounds into energy for the sustenance of their life. I think this proves the ubiquity of life throughout the universe. It's a major discovery. Now, when we return, all about guillotining. Stay tuned. Don't go away. Welcome back. Now for the truth about guillotining. But first, your trivia question of the day. Let me extricate it here from its paper prison. The question: what was the first name of Dr. Guillotine, reputed inventor of the guillotine? The prize, the only prize, one pat on the back that you'll have to administer to yourself if and only if you have the correct answer. I'll take a sip of water and be back momentarily. Okay, time is up. What was Dr. Guillotine's first name? It was Joseph. Now, in 1792, he was a member of the French Assembly and quite a humanitarian. He objected to the current method of execution. For peasants, it was hanging. For aristocrats, beheading by an axeman. Sometimes that axeman did not get the head off with the first swing of the axe. Indeed, those about to be executed would tip him so he'd do a quick, swift, smooth job. Imagine that. Tipping the man who's about to kill you. This contraption had two posts joined by a crossbeam at the top. A heavy steel knife with a slanting edge fit in grooves in the posts. A cord held the knife in place until the executioner would cut the cord and the blade would drop, slicing off the victim's head. Neat, painless, and very efficient. And because the beheading was so swift, many people who were guillotined were still able to talk for a few moments after their deaths. Individuals would pick up the victims' heads and see an expressive look in their faces. There are even some cases of words being uttered. One doctor even had arranged with one victim after his beheading to have him blink 3 times. The victim was able to blink 2 times. Between 1789 and 1799, thousands of people, including the king and queen, lost their lives to this machine. In fact, the guillotine helped to speed up the process of death to such an extent that if you walked the streets of Paris during that period, you'd have to step out of the way of the tumbrils, those 2-wheeled carts that carried people to their deaths. Intriguingly, Dr. Lewis, the true inventor of the guillotine, was guillotined, but Dr. Guillotine was not. He was sentenced to death. However, with the death of Robespierre, his life was spared with the new regime coming into power. He later went on to become a prominent member of the French Academy of Medicine. He died in 1812 at the ripe old age of 76. In 1981, capital punishment was outlawed in France, And with that went the guillotine, the great equalizer. Time now for the amazing case of the unsinkable Titanic. Work was completed on the Titanic in 1912, making it both the world's largest ship and the world's first unsinkable ship. It was built as unsinkable because the bulkhead in front was reinforced so that if the Titanic should have slammed into another ship, an iceberg, or anything else, it would not have sunk. However, they failed to reinforce the sides and undersides. Its maiden voyage was from Southampton, England, and included some of the world's richest people, such as John Jacob Astor. Total number of crew members and passengers on that maiden voyage, over 2,200 people. At first, everything was smooth sailing. On the fateful night of April 14th, 1912, the Titanic had a rendezvous with disaster. Just before midnight, the helmsman off the coast of Newfoundland realized the ship was ready to ram headlong into an iceberg. But instead, he veered it abruptly to one side, thinking he'd saved the ship. But no way. That iceberg ripped a 300-foot gash into the side of the Titanic, where it was unprotected. Immediately, several supposedly watertight compartments were flooded. The ship was doomed. Both passengers and crew started to scurry for the few lifeboats aboard. There were about 16. They needed 48. Women and children were allowed to go first, but it was rumored that some men disguised themselves as women to save their hides. But within 2 hours and 40 minutes, the Titanic had been totally engulfed by the sea. 1,513 went to their final resting place in Davy Jones' locker. Now, intriguingly, there are many paranormal events associated with the sinking of the Titanic. For example, one woman, Eva Hart, was transferred from another ship along with her daughter because of a strike. When she read that the Titanic was supposedly unsinkable, she had a premonition that it would sink. She stayed up every night of the voyage, preparing for disaster. And when it struck, she's able to save herself and her daughter. But the most amazing paranormal event involved the author Morgan Robertson, who in 1898 wrote the book Futility. It was about the world's largest ship, supposedly unsinkable. And uncannily, it mirrored the Titanic in several ways in terms of tonnage, length, number of passengers, and number of lifeboats. Now, skeptics might say he could have studied up on shipbuilding and learned these facts, predicted what a large ship would be like. But consider this. His ship sank in the month of April. It was struck by an iceberg in Newfoundland. And finally, the name of his ship was the Titan. Coming up next, the case of the Viking ghost dog. Stay tuned. Don't go away. Welcome back. Time now for the case of the Viking ghost dog. Back beginning about the 9th century AD, Viking raiders used to attack English coastal towns, such as in the county of Norfolk. One of their most ferocious leaders was a man named Olaf the Fearless. He'd lead his men through one town after another, and no warrior dared challenge his authority. Why? Because at his side was a fierce dog, a black mastiff known as Black Shook. However, on one of those raids, master and dog became separated. Olaf returned to his home without Black Shook. The dog, of course, was crestfallen. He walked back and forth along the coastline for weeks thereafter, then suddenly disappeared. Villagers thought perhaps he had hidden in a coastal cave, or perhaps had tried to swim back home and drowned. But 50 years later, Black Shook mysteriously reappeared. He was running through the village when they tried to catch him, but they couldn't. It turned out he was not a flesh and blood dog, but a phantom canine. And he has appeared just about every 50 years thereafter at Norfolk. Villagers expect him next to return about the year 2002, and every 50 years thereafter. It's one of the most intriguing cases in the annals of parapsychology. For your consideration. Turning now from the cold confines of Northern Europe to the warm environs of the American Southwest, we have a report of giant skeletons being up in Lovelock, Nevada. So, of course, we sent our intrepid reporter, Dennis, up there to investigate. Take it away, Dennis.
Dr. Rule, I'm just outside Lovelock, Nevada, and I'm standing in front of Indian caves, where back in 1911, large, giant skeletons were unearthed, some as large as 8.5 feet. Let's take a look inside. There's quite a mystery here. According to the Paiute Indians, these skeletons are the remains of a band of red-headed giants who terrorized the Indians, killed them, and even ate them. But here's where the controversy begins. Although remains of these skeletons have been taken out of this cave, few of them remain. I'm now in Winnemucca, Nevada, where I was told a skull of these giants was on display. But when I went inside the museum, no skull was to be found. Are the Indians just trying to forget the past with these terrible giants? Or is there something else behind it? A miner by the name of John T. Reed excavated and documented many bones, artifacts, and even complete mummified bodies from this very cave. And the Indians are very insistent that these giants existed. They even say if you dig in this basin behind me, more remains would be found. But archaeologists from around the globe seem to be dragging their feet.
Actually, skeletal remains of giant females have been found elsewhere in the Southwest. For example, back in 1895, in Bridal Veil Falls, California, miners uncovered the remains of a female who was 6 feet 8 inches tall. And just 3 years later, in Death Valley, California, explorers found the remains of a female who was 7 feet 6 inches tall. Possibly, these women were actually Amazonian warriors, the legendary women who were strong warriors who hated men. Another intriguing fact about these skeletons, they had additional buttons or vertebrae suggesting that these Amazonians had tails. How about that? Obviously, we'd love to study them today, but the museum that housed them burned down mysteriously several years ago. But still, this represents a genuine mystery from the American Southwest for your consideration. Another mystery today concerns that of Area 51 in Nevada, outside of Las Vegas. It's a secret government installation, and ufologists claim that we are testing down UFOs there, trying to learn their navigational secrets. One man adhering to this viewpoint is ufologist Sean David Morton. We interviewed Mr. Morton. Let's hear what he has to say. Roll tape.
Area 51 is probably one of the most top secret above ground research and development facilities that the Navy and Armed Forces maintain. Area 51 is approximately 135 miles northwest of Las Vegas. It is probably the top secret military base. At times they have tested everything from the B-1, the F-117A, to the B-2, YF-22, which is the new stealth fighter. At a secret facility some 15 miles from the Groom Lake Area 51 facility is a place that is called S4, also known as Dreamland, the Skunk Works, the Ranch, Project Galileo, Project Sidekick, but also called Papoose Lake. At Papoose Lake, the United States military maintains 9 captured alien spacecraft, which our scientists are reverse engineering, taking these things apart, trying to figure out how they work, and our pilots are test flying up and down the Nevada desert. The 9 ships we have were either ships that we found that had crashed for some reason into the planet due to interference from our technology through microwave technology, what have you. 8 of the ships were apparently in very good working order. 1 had a hole blasted through it. We really don't know how, we as civilian investigators don't know how we came by these particular ships, but according to our inside information, some of them we have either crashed or some of them we've actually gotten in some kind of trade with an alien intelligence. The alien intelligence still maintains a presence on the base. I've spoken to 3 different witnesses who've worked on the base, both as as scientific and support personnel who have sworn to me that they've actually seen these gray aliens that they call the kids actually on the base, assisting U.S. military personnel in the back engineering of our UFO projects. This is the blue bus. These are workers actually going to the facility. Work starts at 6. They usually come home about 6 p.m.
Very intriguing. And when we return, film footage of possible UFOs over Area 51. Stay tuned for this. Welcome back. As promised, film footage of possible UFOs over the mysterious secret Area 51. Let's take a look.
Now, this is the revolutionary piece of footage here because this is the first time that Area 51 has ever been videotaped. What you're seeing there is you're seeing the guard shack, the halogen lamp which illuminates the guard shack. And right here, that's the first time that Area 51 has ever been videotaped. This videotape was taken in June of 1991. You can see the object in the center there is a very large hangar that has a row of 9 halogen lamps on it that is illuminating the airfield. You'll see in front of it a long white line, which is a runway, which is approximately about 3.5 miles long, very, very long runway. Now, every morning at Area 51, something always happens at exactly 4:50 a.m. There's usually an object that lands. This light came on and began making what appeared to be a very routine approach toward the facility. Now, here's the peculiar thing about this object. This is the same object as it's coming down, getting ready to land at the Groom Lake facility. The odd thing about this object is that it seems to be enveloped by a field of some kind. You can see there it actually looks disc-shaped. Now, as it's moving past us, you'll see a bit of a lens flare from our video camera, but there is a brilliant white light engulfing this entire object. This is not a helicopter. This is not a standard military jet. This object, I believe, could possibly be the top secret plane known as the Aurora. At between 4:30 and 4:45 a.m. on that same day, this object was preceded by some of the massive skyquakes that rock Southern California that register anywhere from 4.3 to 4.6 on the Richter scale. This object comes in from space, flies over the Catalina Islands, over Hermosa Beach, specifically over my house, and then into the Groom Lake facility. Now, as the object moves in towards the facility, you'll see on the right there that the hangar lights have gone on, illuminating the field, and just as it passes those 2 runway markers, you'll see the field actually goes off right there. And now that you can see what look like 2 blinking strobes on the object, not only is this the first time Area 51 has been videotaped, but I think the first time that we may have actually caught on film the top secret project Aurora actually landing at the facility. One of the reasons why Area 51 has been important over the last couple of years is because of the fact that we've been able to take regular people like you and I out to the Area 51 facility and actually show them the type of things that we have. Actually, so many people have had religious experiences out there because all their lives they've wanted to see a flying saucer, and then there they are. It's one of the only places on Earth where flying saucers fly on a military timetable.
In assessing this case, I think that's quite possible that our government over the years has captured 1 or more downed UFOs. And conceivably, it may take 10, 20, 30, even 40 years to crack the code of that alien technology and put it to use, such as in creating a new plane like the Stealth. The government can end the controversy by unlocking the gates of Area 51 and letting the world press in to see what's there. Since they keep those gates locked, we have to think they're trying to hide something. On the other hand, I must say I've not yet seen the definitive UFO footage that convinces me we have UFOs there. So I'm reserving judgment on this one. But if you'd like to see Area 51 for yourself, Sean is conducting tours, information at the end of our credit roll. And by the way, if you've seen anything of interest yourself, such as a UFO, ET, Bigfoot, lake monster, or ghost, or anything else like that, call us on our toll-free 800 number. That's 1-800-45-RULE, RUEHL. Now, until next time, may the power of the universe be with you.